Whenever people discuss the greatest actors of all time, the same names always come up. Brando, Denzel, Breen, Streep, and don't get me wrong, they're all fantastic. But to me it begs the question, just what is it that makes a great actor? No, seriously, I'm legitimately asking because I don't really know. Although, to be fair, I don't think anyone actually knows. I mean, there are whole award ceremonies that revolve around picking the best performances, and they still get it wrong sometimes. Acting is incredibly subjective, as everyone has their own criteria on how to measure greatness. I mean, what's more impressive? To pull a De Niro and deliver an amazing performance in an amazing movie? Or to pull a Raul Julia and deliver a stellar performance in an unstellar movie? Oh, did you think I meant Street Fighter? No, that movie's awesome. I meant The Addams Family. That's right, I said it. It's not as good as you remember it being. Addams Family Values is way better.
Well, why you booing me? I'm right.
But those Raul Julia performances bring up another question I had. Are great actors selective in the material they choose, or are they so confident in their abilities that they're willing to tackle anything? Like I said, everyone has their own criteria to judge greatness, but on a personal level, I am far more impressed with the character actors and actresses who take on any role thrown their way. I'm talking about those performers who show up in seemingly everything and deliver every time. You may not know their names, but you know their faces. And every time you see them on screen, you know you're in good hands. Now, when it comes to performers with prolific film credits, there was someone who took it to a whole nother level. Someone who considered himself a character actor, but Hollywood considered a leading man. And with all due respect, the likes of John Carroll Lynch, James Reborn, and I dare you to tell me this guy's name without looking it up, there was only one actor whose versatility inspired a game that's still played to this day. This is Pop Culture Hyperfixations, and today we're talking about the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon.
Paul Hogan was in Lightning Jack with Beverly D'Angelo, who was in Vacation with Chevy Chase, who was in Cops and Robertsons with Jack Palance, who was in City Slickers with Daniel Stern, who was in Diner with Kevin Bacon.
There you go. All right.
Strangely, the number 6 would follow Kevin from the day he was born, as he was the 6th and final child born to his parents Ruth and Edmund Bacon. Growing up in Philadelphia with 5 older siblings made it difficult sometimes for a young Kevin to stand out, but in numerous interviews he traced his desire to get into acting back to the enjoyment he got whenever he was able to get attention. As a teenager, he got involved with the local Philly theater scene, but when he graduated high school, he decided to leave home and move to New York City. At only 19 years old, he got the first of what would become many on-screen credits when he played one of the villainous Omega Thetas in National Lampoon's Animal House. The film was a huge success, and although it didn't launch Bacon into stardom, it did get his foot in the door. Over the next few years, Bacon would take on various film and television roles that ranged from a horny but doomed camp counselor in Friday the 13th to a troubled but brilliant alcoholic in Diner. In 1984, Bacon would take on the role that he believes still defines his career, as he was cast to play the lead role of Ren McCormick in Footloose. The film was a hit at the box office and fully catapulted him into the next level of Hollywood stardom. Even though he was now considered a leading man, Bacon was still an incredibly versatile performer. He was just as good playing a romantic lead in the John Hughes film She's Having a Baby as he was running away from giant desert worms in Tremors. But even though he was getting those leading roles, Bacon was deeply unsatisfied. Speaking to the Times, he would describe the years after Footloose as a decade of failure. He never cared about being a leading man, he just wanted to be a good actor. Unhappy with the state of his career, he hired a new agent who advised him to, quote, exploit his edge. In an interview with Deadline, he credits the film JFK as the turning point in his career. To call the 1991 film star-studded would be an understatement, as the cast included such luminaries as Kevin Costner, Tommy Lee Jones, Joe Pesci, and Donald Sutherland, just to name a few. It would be hard for any actor to stand out among such a murderer's row of talent, but not all actors grew up the youngest of 6 kids in Philadelphia. His performance was so well received that Bacon has said that his career almost changed overnight. He followed JFK up with another great performance in A Few Good Men, and was finally on track to have the career he always wanted. Now, while Bacon was in the midst of a career transformation, 3 fraternity brothers from Pennsylvania were going through the motions. A snowstorm had hit their campus at Albright College and left the trio without much to do. So Craig Fass, Brian Turtle, and Mike Gineli chose to just hang out and have some beers in their apartment. They left the TV on for background noise, and before they knew it, Footloose was on TV. After some time passed, they looked back, and now the same channel was playing his 1986 film Quicksilver. They thought they must have been in the midst of some sort of Kevin Bacon double feature until a commercial came on that literally changed their lives forever.
From Hollywood Pictures, Coach Jimmy Dolan traveled to Africa to discover basketball's next superstar.
Number one Nuba draft pick. Nuba. NBA. Where'd you learn about that? Sports Illustrated. Swimsuit editions.
What he found was a player who became his friend.
This isn't about you going back with me anymore.
And a champion who became a hero.
It's up to you, my man.
Kevin Bacon. And introducing Charles Gatunga Minor, the heir up there.
Okay, so I don't know if that was the actual commercial, but they did see a commercial for Kevin Bacon's basketball comedy, The Air Up There, a movie that I absolutely loved as a child, and am incredibly nervous about revisiting as an adult. The 3 Bacon movies in a row shocked the trio, which prompted one of them to declare that Kevin Bacon must have worked with everyone. They began talking about actors Bacon had done movies with until someone mentioned that Bacon had never worked with Robert De Niro. This led to another member of the trio to point out that while Bacon hadn't worked with De Niro, he did do JFK with Kevin Costner, who did The Untouchables with De Niro. As Brian Turtle would say years later, that was the match that started the flame and was the first connection ever made in 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon. The name for the game comes from the theory of 6 degrees of separation. I'm giving the Cliff Notes version of it, but it's basically an idea that everyone in the world is connected socially through 6 or fewer acquaintances. For example, my friend Tom from WCW Deep Cuts did a cameo in my Be a Man video. Tom has also appeared on WFMU's Wrestling Club with Darren and Brett. Brett created the special without Brett Davis, which had Gilbert Gottfried on the show. Gilbert appeared in Beverly Hills Cop 2 with Eddie Murphy, who had a child with Mel B of the Spice Girls, who hosted a dance show on Oxygen called Dance Your Ass Off that featured a choreographer named Danny Thiessen as the judge, who was the person who played Mr. Six in the Six Flag commercials.
You freaking did it.
The theory was mainstreamed in the then recently released film 6 Degrees of Separation, which is likely why the Albright trio so quickly found the perfect name for the game. For those who've never played the game, it's incredibly simple. All you need to do is connect an actor via their co-stars back to Kevin Bacon in as few steps as possible. Using the film version of 6 Degrees of Separation as an example, Will Smith was in that with Donald Sutherland, who was in Animal House with Kevin Bacon. That gives Will Smith a Bacon number of 1, meaning there is only 1 degree between them. The trio spent all night making connections until they finally went to sleep when they couldn't figure out how to connect either Gary Coleman or Brooke Shields. There are conflicting reports. They did figure it out the next day, and for the record, Gary Coleman was in On the Right Track with Maureen Stapleton, who was in Cocoon with Steve Guttenberg, who was in Diner with Kevin Bacon, while Brooke Shields was in Freaked with Randy Quaid, who was in The Last Detail with Jack Nicholson, who was in A Few Good Men with Kevin Bacon. The trio did try to play a version of the game with Kiefer Sutherland at the center, but preferred the Kevin Bacon version. Word of their exploits quickly spread on campus, and the trio became minor celebrities at Albright. They didn't think much of it until they took a weekend road trip to Penn State and saw firsthand just how big their game had gotten. There they were at a college 100 miles away from their own, and total strangers were asking them to play. It was at that point they knew they had something special. Through word of mouth and this new confangled thing called the internet, the game was spreading faster than anyone could have ever anticipated. The trio decided to try and take advantage of their game going viral, so they sent a letter to the Jon Stewart Show on MTV offering to come on national television and prove their theory that Kevin Bacon was the center of the Hollywood universe. The trio did so well in that appearance, producers wanted them to come back for a second episode and meet Kevin Bacon. Which, by the way, how did Kevin Bacon feel about all this? Yeah, at the time, Kevin Bacon actively hated the game. He had first heard about it on an episode of Howard Stern, but had also begun experiencing the awkwardness of strangers coming up to tell him about it. He's been pretty open in interviews that he felt weird about the whole thing because he thought he was being made fun of. He was pretty insecure and suffering from imposter syndrome, so he thought the big joke of the game was, hey look, isn't it silly to connect the guy from Footloose to Laurence Olivier? And very quickly, Olivier is in Dracula with Frank Langella, who's in Frost Nixon with Kevin Bacon. He was booked for the Jon Stewart Show to promote his film Murder in the First. When he found out the Albright trio would be there, he almost backed out. Instead, he decided he would confront them and tell them they had their fun, but it was time to find someone else to pick on. But upon meeting the trio, he quickly realized that they were actually sincere in their fandom, and any bad feelings melted away. He still felt a little weird about the game, but he began to slowly embrace it, even calling into TV shows the trio were on, and there were a lot of shows. By this point, the trio were trying to do as much as possible with their small amount of celebrity. They had recently graduated and were wondering if they could make a living as the Kevin Bacon guys. It was actually Howard Stern who helped them realize they should try to make some money off this. During an appearance on his show, he encouraged them to pursue any opportunities they could, which directly led to a book deal. The book, titled 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon, came out in 1996 and did respectably well. Shortly after that, a toy company called Endless Games, founded by the inventors of Pictionary, approached the trio with an idea for a board game, which hit shelves in 1997. There was also talk of a Kevin Bacon bar that never came to fruition, as well as a show for VH1 that never got picked up called 6 Degrees, which would somehow connect music videos back to Bacon. Unfortunately, none of their attempts to turn a profit off the game were that successful. In an interview with the Signing Off podcast, Craig Fass theorized that if you combine all their endeavors, they probably made about $12,000. And that was before they split it. As the 6 Degrees craze died down, the trio moved into the next chapter of their lives. Mike Gineli became an investment banker, Craig Fass became a chef, and Brian Turtle ended up working for Endless Games. For the most part, they've all moved on, but they've still dabbled with the entertainment world here and there. Turtle and Gineli teamed up to compete in VH1's World Series of Pop Culture, and Turtle actually hosted a panel at South by Southwest with Bacon discussing the game. As for the man himself, whereas he previously kept it at an arm's length, Kevin has now fully embraced the game. It took him some time, but he has said that he first noticed this change of attitude when he got defensive hearing people try to play an Arnold Schwarzenegger version of the game. He's parodied the game in TV shows and Super Bowl commercials, and has confessed that when he knows he's working on a project with someone, he'll look up their Bacon number to see if he's already worked with them before. But if you ask Kevin, I imagine the thing he is proudest about the game is its role in his charity work. In 2007, he launched the charity website 6degrees.org based on the same idea of connections as the game itself. It's been over 20 years since the game was created, and there are no signs that neither the game nor Kevin Bacon will slow down. According to Brian Turtle, in recent years there was an attempt to get a game show version on the air, but it never came to pass. But as long as Kevin Bacon continues to work, he will still be a prominent part of pop culture. Getting a Bacon number is a rite of passage for performers at this point, and if any casting directors out there would like to help me get one for myself, I will be waiting for your call. The true irony of all this is that the idea that Kevin Bacon is the most connected actor in Hollywood isn't really true. I'm not sure if it was true then, but it's definitely not true now. According to the Oracle of Bacon, a longtime website created in 1999 by a pair of grad students, Kevin Bacon is only the 523rd most connected actor in Hollywood. So who's number one?
You guessed it, Frank Stallone.
I'm just kidding, it's Eric Roberts. Hey, thanks for watching. If you liked the video, hit the like button. If you want to see more, hit subscribe. And let me know in the comments your favorite Kevin Bacon movie. For some reason, mine is Death Sentence, and I don't know why.